Of the FCC to order. Madam Secretary, would you please introduce our agenda for this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. Today's agenda includes one item for your consideration. You will consider a report and order that protects consumers by implementing the Commercial Advertisement Loudness Mitigation Act, or CALM Act, to prevent digital television commercial advertisements from being transmitted at louder volumes than the program material they accompany. This is your agenda for today. Today's item will be presented by the Media Bureau. William Lake, Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Terrific. Mr. Lake, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Today, the Media Bureau presents an item that will protect viewers by ensuring that commercial advertisements on television will be no louder than the programming they accompany. This order implements the Commercial Advertisement Loudness Mitigation Act, known as the CALM Act. The CALM Act was enacted into law on December 15, 2010, in response to viewer complaints about loud commercials, which the Commission has been receiving almost as long as commercial television has existed. The Commission has not regulated the loudness of commercials in the past, partly because of the technical limitations of analog television. Digital TV technology, however, makes it now feasible to manage loudness, and Congress has directed the Commission to take this opportunity to address these persistent viewer complaints. Joining me at the table this morning are Eloise Gore of the Enforcement Bureau's front office, Mary Beth Murphy and Lyle Elder of the Media Bureau's Policy Division, and Shabnam Javed of the Media Bureau's Engineering Division. Lyle will present the item.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I am pleased to present this report and order in the Commission's CALM Act implementation proceeding. The CALM Act directs the Commission to incorporate by reference a recommended practice established by the ATSC, a private digital television standard-setting body. The order incorporates ATSC A85 and makes it mandatory on all commercial advertisements transmitted by TV broadcasters and MVPDs. To address the problem of commercial loudness, the order requires that all stations and MVPDs comply both as to commercials they locally insert and as to already embedded commercials they pass through as part of programming provided from a network or programmer. Under the order, the Enforcement Bureau will notify stations and MVPDs of potential noncompliance if it receives a pattern or trend of consumer complaints. Because retroactively demonstrating compliance may be difficult, the order provides two methods by which entities may more easily demonstrate ongoing compliance. With respect to locally inserted commercials, stations and MVPDs that demonstrate that they install, utilize, and maintain equipment and software in a commercially reasonable manner will be deemed in compliance with the rules. With respect to embedded commercials, the order provides an alternative safe harbor approach that involves a combination of certifications by programmers and spot checks by distributors. All stations and MVPDs will be in the safe harbor for commercials embedded in programming if the program provider has certified that its programming complies with the practice, the station or MVPD has no reason to believe that certification is incorrect, and the station or MVPD certifies the compliance of its own equipment to transmit the programming to consumers. To promote a level playing field, a certifying programmer must make its certifications available to all distributors. To be in the safe harbor with regard to commercials in non-certified programming, larger stations and MVPDs must perform annual 24-hour spot checks of channels carrying non-certified programming. Large broadcast stations, those with more than 14 million in annual receipts, and the top 4 MVPDs, those with 10 million or more subscribers, must spot check 100% of non-certified programming. MVPDs with fewer than 10 million but more than 400,000 subscribers, these are the 5th through 15th largest MVPDs, must spot check 50% of non-certified programming. This will increase the likelihood that at least one entity is spot checking all commercial programming, including regional or other programming not carried by one of the top 4 MVPDs. This approach will also ensure that national programming is spot checked on multiple days over the course of the year. Once a larger station or MVPD has performed 2 years of spot checks on its non-certified programming and found no evidence of non-compliance, it may stop performing annual spot checks and remain in the safe harbor. Smaller stations and MVPDs are excused from annual spot checks. If notified by the Enforcement Bureau of a pattern or trend of consumer complaints, a station or MVPD must perform a 24-hour spot check of the channel at issue. This requirement applies to all stations and MVPDs, regardless of size, and applies to both certified and non-certified programming. However, if complaints implicate both large and small stations or MVPDs, the Bureau would generally focus enforcement inquiries first on the larger entities. Spot checks, whether annual or in response to a pattern or trend of complaints, will require further action only if they indicate non-compliance by the programmer. In that case, the station or MVPD must notify the Commission and the programmer within 7 days and conduct a follow-up spot check within 30 days. If that follow-up spot check reveals non-compliance, the station or MVPD will not be in the safe harbor for that programming and will be liable for future violations. As required by the CALM Act, the rules contained in this order will go into effect 1 year after their adoption, or December 13, 2012. This additional year affords stations and MVPDs ample time to prepare for compliance and gives programmers the opportunity to provide the certifications for their programming that will make the whole process run more smoothly for the benefit of both consumers and video providers. The Media Bureau recommends that the Commission adopt the report and order and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let's hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Cobbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an important day for consumer protection. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of citizens have told me personally through emails and letters at public hearings, even across the family dinner table, how obnoxiously intrusive they find loud commercials. So do I. And I am therefore delighted that this proceeding made it onto our agenda before I depart the Commission. Of course, we would not be here today without the leadership of Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who spearheaded this effort in Congress. Always an inspiration, Representative Eshoo introduced the legislation that made today possible and then shepherded it through to enactment. Once again, she delivers for American consumers. And her colleague on the other side of the Capitol, Senator Sheldon Whitestone, also did an outstanding job of navigating this measure through the United States Senate. I'm proud this agency has tackled so many consumer protection issues under Chairman Janikowski's leadership, and I am confident more are on the way. There's a very definitive nexus between the actions taken in this room and in our bureaus with the everyday lives of Americans. This is at the heart of what the public interest is all about. And one more time, I want us to remember that that term public interest appears by my count 112 times in our governing statute, and this item reflects that. I want to be sure the spirit and letter of the new law are fully implemented by the Commission. The purpose of the act was to get rid of loud commercials, period. I realize that the program production chain is a long one, and not every link in that chain is under FCC purview, but that just means we have to work all the harder to make sure consumers receive the protections envisioned in this law. I also realize that sometimes what people think is an easy fix doesn't turn out that way. For example, technical questions regarding locally inserted commercials versus passing through commercials that are inserted upstream made for some very complicated discussions. But the Bureau worked assiduously and in the spirit of the Act throughout the process. While I might not have made every single call the identical way, I do believe the item before us provides an appropriate balance, as required by statute, of giving some measure of flexibility to the smallest providers, even while providing the necessary heft to drive all parties to workable and implementable solutions. And I'm confident the Commission will be closely monitoring implementation each and every step of the way and will make any adjustments that are called for to ensure that consumers get what the legislation intended them to get. I want to recognize and thank the numerous industry interests, such as NCTA, for stepping up to the plate and working with us to find workable solutions. I thank everyone who lent a hand, contributed to the record, and put a shoulder to the wheel to help fashion the item before us. And as part of the implementation going forward, we're going to need consumers to provide the FCC with feedback and to inform us if they hear, and I literally mean hear, any problem. The complaint process puts heavy emphasis on consumer complaints to monitor where instances of overly loud commercials may still exist. Above all, thanks to the Bureau for working through this very important but also very demanding proceeding. I appreciate the hard work of all, and I want especially to recognize the contribution of the ever indefatigable Eloise Gore and her partner in this work, Lyle Elder, and everybody else in the Bureau. Thanks to my colleagues for their input, and to the chairman for making sure we got this done both in time and creditably. I am pleased to support the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we implement the Column Act. Sorry. Try to keep it down. From this point forward, TV commercials such as those for OxyClean, ShamWow, Head On, and the like will never be the same. Yes, family rooms across America might be a little less noisy as a result of our implementation of Congress's will. The directly elected representatives of the American people have mandated that the FCC muffle the sudden volume increases of TV commercials, and today we are giving that endeavor our best shot, absent reaching for our remote control's volume or mute buttons. Although I'm generally supportive of our efforts today, as you may have guessed, I do have some reservations about a few of the rules we are adopting. I'm concerned that Congress may not have given us the authority to take some of these actions, and when addressing promotional announcements, we may not be faithfully executing the letter of the statute. The legislative history of the Column Act, however, stresses the overall objective of prohibiting disruptive and intrusive loud advertisements that are an annoyance to the consumer. I'm sure whether we are getting the legislative, unsure as whether or not we are getting the legislative intent right, but I remain hopeful. Many thanks to my colleagues for taking specific measures to reduce the burden on stations and MVPDs, such as adopting safe harbors, using programmer certifications to establish compliance for embedded commercials, providing for the sunset of the annual requirement to perform spot checks on non-certified programming, and lessening the effects on small operators by requiring them to monitor the volume of commercials only if there is a pattern of complaints specific to their particular station or system. I'm also appreciative that Congress specifically provided the Commission with the ability to provide financial hardship waivers and recognized our general authority to waive our rules for good cause. I'm hoping that such waivers will be reasonably provided to alleviate burdens on broadcast stations and MVPDs if our rules should cause unintended consequences. I thank the chairman and my colleagues for their willingness to incorporate some of my edits. I applaud the media and enforcement bureaus for their dedication and thoughtful hard work on all of this, which is really kind of a complicated matter, believe it or not. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Clyburn.
I don't often quote my colleagues from the bench, but today I proudly embrace lines I've heard many times from the distinguished gentleman from Virginia, in stating that as a commissioner, I don't tell Congress what to do, Congress tells me what to do. And in that vein, we move forward with an order which will greatly improve the parity of volume levels in commercials to that of the programs they accompany. For far too long, TV viewers either frantically reached for the remote to adjust the volume when the commercials began, or endured what sometimes were frightening decibel levels that resulted in considerable alarm, anger, and spilled popcorn. Congress heard the cries of the TV-watching public and constructed a bill to address this concern. Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who notes that the issue of loud commercials has been a top consumer complaint for almost 50 years, authored a bill that passed the House via voice vote, meaning a roll call vote was not even necessary. The Senate followed a similar path, passing the bill by unanimous consent. Ms. Eshoo went on to proclaim that the Column Act gives the control of sound back to the consumer where it belongs, and I absolutely agree. In crafting an item that adheres to the bill Congress passed, we had to try our best to achieve balance and not overly burden the industry with new requirements that would adversely harm smaller operators by adding onerous new expenses. As I mentioned when I began speaking, we do as Congress instructs us, but hopefully with a glow stick and not a flamethrower. The Media Bureau staff, including our engineers, worked tirelessly to guide us through this rulemaking while consulting with the industry. We did all we could to minimize the burdens on operators, both large and small, while at the same time maintaining the broad coverage that Congress specified with regard to technology parameters. Further, we needed to put into place an enforcement mechanism to address future problems as they arise and to continue to field complaints from the public. Congress chose the ATSC 85 recommended practice, which the industry created, and the Commission incorporated from this point forward. Making that mandatory will add certainty to the business planning of stations, cable operators, and other MVPDs nationwide, just as Congress intended. Safe harbor and compliance provisions, including certifications, spot checks, and waiver requests, will serve to maintain the balance sought by Congress and the FCC and not burdening industry. The item demonstrates the deft handling of interests that could potentially collide when Congress, an agency, industry players, and consumers intersect. All four can be, and often are, filled with passion for their stake in what's being considered, and finding common ground can be elusive. But I believe we've done that today in a way that satisfies all of the parties involved. Consumers cried out, Congress heard them, and the FCC worked with affected industries and consumer representatives to address the concern. This is an example of government receptiveness and efficiency, and I and the American public should take great comfort in it. I want to thank Lyle Elder, Evan Baranoff, Allison Knaplock, Shablam Javid, sorry about that, and the often imitated but never duplicated Eloise Gore. This item is a result of your hard work and dedication, and I thank you for it.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. This is an issue that people care about, the consumers care about. The consumer I listen to most, my wife, has for years wondered when we were going to do something about this, and was very pleased to see Congress act, and very pleased to hear that we are implementing this today. We have received thousands of complaints about TV commercials that come on much louder than the programming around it. Consumers Union, in their last 25 quarterly reports, 21 of them have identified loud TV commercials as a consumer grievance. And so today, I'm pleased that the Commission is implementing the COM Act. The rule that we adopt is straightforward. TV providers must ensure that the average loudness of commercials will be no higher than the average volume of the programming they accompany. So the bottom line today, the FCC is quieting a persistent problem of the TV age, loud commercials. I want to acknowledge and thank Congresswoman Eshoo for her persistence and leadership on this issue, Chairman Rockefeller and Senator Whitehouse. Also, I want to acknowledge and thank, and let me thank the staff, particularly at the Media Bureau, all of the staff members up here for working hard on this to make sure that we get this right, that we do this in a thoughtful way that takes into account some of the challenging engineering issues and some of the unique issues faced by smaller broadcasters. With today's vote, I'm pleased that we're able to eliminate something that millions of consumers perceive as a pervasive and annoying problem. With that, let's proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Any volume will do. The ayes have it. So ordered, the request for editorial privileges is granted, and back to our regularly scheduled programming. Thank you very much. That is the only votable item on our agenda today. It alone would make it an important today, but of course, today is significant for another very important reason. In fact, the final piece of the Commission's agenda today is a bittersweet one. After 10 years of service here at the Commission and well over 100 Commission meetings, today is Commissioner Mike Kopp's last open meeting. In a moment, I'd like to give my colleagues a chance to recognize Commissioner Kopp and his extraordinary career in government, but first let me say a few words to express my own appreciation for Mike Kopp as a colleague and a friend. As many of you may know, Commissioner Kopp came to Washington in 1970 to serve as a special assistant to Senator Fritz Hollings. Mike Kopp at the time was an assistant professor at Loyola University in New Orleans, having just earned his PhD in American history from the University of North Carolina. Mike Kopp expected to stay in Washington for a couple of years, to work an interest in government out of his system and then return to the academic life. 41 years later, here we are. The Academy's loss has been the government's great gain. Those of us here today focus on Mike Kopp's 10 years at the Commission. That's only a quarter of Mike Kopp's incredible career in public service. He served Senator Hollings during the 1970s and 1980s, most of that time as his chief of staff. Those of us who've been in the space remember Senator Hollings very well, remember the extraordinary work that he did in this space, and having now worked with Mike Kopp, we understand a lot more about how Senator Hollings was able to get done as much as he got done. During the administration of President Clinton, Mike Kopp served in the Commerce Department, ultimately as an assistant secretary dealing with trade and international issues, making a real contribution to public service then, but also broadening his background and experience set, making him an even more valuable member of the Commission once he came here. And then for the past 10 years, Mike Kopp has served with great distinction at the FCC. There are many things to admire about Commissioner Kopp. I've had the good fortune to mention some of them in past remarks. We'll all, I'm happy to say, have other occasions to say more about Commissioner Kopp and his incredible contributions. Let me just highlight a couple of things here today at this meeting. First, I want to acknowledge Commissioner Kopp's deep and abiding commitment to public service. This is apparent, of course, from his own life and career choices. For those of us who've been privileged to work closely with Mike Kopp, it's also been apparent each and every day in the example he has set for us all, the questions he asks every day. With every decision issue before him, big or small, the first and last question has always been, how will this affect real Americans, young and old, urban and rural, fortunate or less fortunate, disabled or not? These are, of course, the questions that really matter. And it's been a great privilege and a great lesson to serve alongside a public servant with such a fierce and unwavering commitment to the public and the public interest. As acting chairman, Mike Kopp was an exceptional steward of the agency during an important time. Of particular importance during that period, of course, was the DTV transition, an unprecedented changeover that would affect the entire country, all TV viewers. Not a simple thing. Commissioner Kopp stepped into the role as acting chairman just a month before the switchover was scheduled, worked very closely with his two colleagues who were here at the time, Commissioner McDowell one, Commissioner Adelstein another, and oversaw a DTV transition that to virtually all Americans was seamless. One of the great accomplishments sometimes in government is to do things that don't generate a lot of controversy and a lot of attention, and the fact that that transition went as smoothly as it did and generated much less in the way of discussion than it might have, as a tribute to Mike Copps as acting chairman and his colleagues on the commission at that time. In this setting, I certainly want to recognize the eloquence of Commissioner Copps' public statements as someone who appreciates great writing and great speaking. I want to take particular note of that. Of course, it's always a challenge to follow, as I generally do, Mike Copps in these meetings. And I sit here very often thinking, yes, that's exactly the right way to make that point. What it really reflects, I think, is not simply a matter of style and elegance, but it reflects passion and vision, and Commissioner Copps' written statements and speeches reflect that. That's why they're so powerful. I want to recognize Mike Copps' role as a mentor to many leaders in our community. Many members of Commissioner Copps' personal staff are here today. We had a wonderful ceremony this morning unveiling Commissioner Copps' portrait, which now hangs right outside the commission meeting room. A very high number of former commissioners and chairman came by to pay tribute to Mike Copps, which also speaks volumes about his extraordinary career, and in the extraordinary careers of his former staff members and others at the commission who Commissioner Copps engaged with over the last 10 years. It's just one of the ways that we will see the work of Mike Copps continue. We see it every day, and of course it's a wonderful thing that the person who has been nominated to fill Mike Copps' seat at the commission is a former staffer of Mike Copps, Jessica Rosenworcel. Through this all, Commissioner Copps found a way to be not just a spirited public servant, but a committed family member, a leader in his community. We've all gotten to know his wonderful wife, Beth. We thank her. We thank Commissioner Copps' 5 children, his 6 grandchildren, including one on the way right now. We thank them all for their sacrifices in allowing Commissioner Copps to put the time and energy that he has into this important job. Mike Copps has said he'll remain engaged in the issues before us. I can't imagine anything diminishing his passion and conviction. And so, even though this is Commissioner Copps' last meeting as an FCC commissioner, we can all rest assured that we'll still have Copps on the beat. So please join me in recognizing Commissioner Mike Copps' outstanding career in public service here at the FCC and throughout government. Thank you. And departing from our usual order, I'm going to ask Commissioner McDowell if he would like to make any remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been in denial about this day for quite some time. I dislike farewells, and I'm not very good at them because I tend to get emotional. In fact, just the other day, we had to say goodbye to the McDowell family's only pet, Lucky, the sea monkey, and I teared up. So you can understand how difficult it is for me to say not farewell, but see you later to my friend and distinguished colleague of the past 5.5 years, almost half your tenure here, Mike Copps. So I'll try to keep this lighthearted and dry-eyed, but I can't make any guarantees. Unlike Lucky, Mike has quite a backbone. He is, without a doubt, my favorite principled liberal. I first met Mike when I was in the private sector shortly after he became a commissioner in 2001. His reputation as an erudite intellectual with a deep and broad career in public service preceded his arrival here. Before meeting him, in all honesty, I was a bit intimidated. He quickly put me at ease, however, with his straightforward, thoughtful, and genteel manner. Little did I know in 2001 that someday we would become colleagues and then friends. We are not an obvious pair for friendship. I'm a Republican. He's a Democrat. I believe in market solutions. He believes in government solutions. And perhaps the widest chasm for us to bridge, I'm a Blue Devil, and he is a Tar Heel. Nonetheless, fate threw us together. If Neil Simon were to write a play about us, undoubtedly it would be called The Odd Couple. But unlike Oscar and Felix, we did not drive each other crazy. Quite the opposite. We worked together more than most FCC observers probably realize. Sometimes we took different philosophical paths, but arrived at the same destination, such as with the contentious issue that faced me before I was even sworn in, multicast must carry. We both declined to support it, but for different reasons. That type of scenario unfolded frequently. In fact, a while ago, I asked my law clerks to analyze my voting record versus the 3 chairmen with whom I have served. Counting concurrences now. I voted with Chairman Martin 97% of the time. The last time I checked, which is a few months ago, I voted with Chairman Janikowski 95% of the time. That's pretty good. And during Mike Kopp's 6 months tenure as chairman, we voted together. Can we get a drum roll out of the tech booth? Thank you. Very good. We voted together 100% of the time. That's right. During the era of the 3 amigos, under the leadership of Chairman Kopp's, all 50 votes that he, Jonathan Adelstein, and I cast were unanimous. So if I've accomplished one thing today, it is to ruin both of our reputations amongst our various constituencies. But in all seriousness, we always knew that Mike Kopp's had a countercultural streak. When it came time for him to display his leadership abilities with his hand on the tiller of this agency, it ended up that his style ran counter to the partisan culture of Washington. Such a perfect bipartisan legacy is virtually unheard of these days. By the way, I always hesitated to call him acting chairman. Remember, he isn't an actor. He's a rock star. Plus, a mere acting chairman could not have brought in for a smooth landing the one task that required the FCC to affect more Americans than any other in decades, the digital television transition. Success was by no means guaranteed, yet Chairman Kopp's inclusiveness brought together a diverse coalition of coalitions that spanned literally from sea to shining sea to make the DTV transition a sparkling success. And I will always be grateful to him for accomplishing that Herculean task a mere 4 days before my Senate reconfirmation hearing. A little tense about that at first. And let us always remember that his adroit handling of the DTV transition garnered him Fox News Sunday's coveted Power Player of the Week award. Many folks found that deliciously ironic. By the way, did MSNBC ever do that for you? No? I don't think so. I always look forward to my meetings with Mike. He frequently starts our conversations talking about his family. He's quite obviously a loving husband to his beautiful bride, Beth, a proud father to 5 children, Bobby, Betsy, Michael, Will, and Claire, and a very busy, adoring grandfather tending to his 6 children. Grandchildren, is it 6 currently or 7 on the way? 7's on the way. Okay. They're obviously a prolific and fertile bunch, those Koppses. So it's hard to keep count of all the grandkids. During our meetings, not only did he always make me think, but we had a lot of fun as well. He uttered some of his best one-liners from his bottomless satchel of humor during our one-on-ones. Fortunately for the two of us, but unfortunately for everyone else, they will remain forever off the record. Even though we sometimes disagreed on policy, I admire his talent in expressing his views so memorably. Who else could have framed our December 2007 media ownership decision as, quote, another big shiny present for the favored few who already hold an FCC license and a lump of coal for everyone else? And he once again stole the show when delivering his statement on the Comcast BitTorrent matter when he said that the FCC needed to, quote, make clear that the Commission is not having a one-night stand with net neutrality, but an affair of the heart and a commitment for life. Who can't help but admire his eloquence? His accomplishments are numerous and profound, and I suspect that he is merely mid-stride in his quest to quench his desire for public service. I hope that is the case. For in Washington, there are only three types of policymakers. Too numerous are the unprincipled politicians who will say and do anything to stay in office. Far fewer are the dedicated and diligent public servants who devote their lives to serving their fellow citizens. And then, each generation yields only a few whose vision, honesty, sincerity, and passion truly make them e pluribus unum, one out of many. These individuals are known as statesmen. And ladies and gentlemen, Michael J. Copps is a statesman. Thank you for your service to our country, my friend, and I look forward to a lot more. Thank you.
Commissioner Clyburn.
When I arrived at the Commission 2.5 years ago, I suddenly had a host of friends, a host of new friends, a lot of new friends. Wonderful people, all of them, but there was one who especially stood out. Michael Copps has been a prominent presence in Washington for some time, but his connection to and love for a particular state in the Union got my attention from day one. And that blending of DC savvy and Southern graces has had a profound effect on me ever since. He's part professor, part watchful critic, part sage, but he's also all friend, all mentor, and all public servant. He came to the Commission in the spring of 2001, and after September of that year, it was clear that our nation's communications networks needed to undergo major changes in response to major threats. Our first responders needed better interoperability, and Michael Copps fought and continues to fight for them. He was integral to the DTV transition, and his guiding hand assisted in conducting a massive shift with regard to one of the scariest places imaginable, the space between people and their television sets. When I was nominated, one of the first things I did was try to find more about acting Chairman Copps. And although his three most important priorities at the time were DTV, DTV, and DTV, he helped to navigate that shift and so much more. As we heard at the Commission meeting last month, he initiated a rulemaking proceeding to spur the deployment of new wireless medical services that could bring great breakthroughs to the more than 5 million Americans who are suffering from paralysis. He also issued a report on the rural broadband strategy and initiated the National Broadband Plan proceeding. I'm sorry, I wish I were cute when I cried, I'm not, so this is gonna be real. Commissioner Copps has consistently provided a voice to the voiceless, and I have been fortunate enough to see this advocacy in action. Just 2 weeks ago, in our final official forum together, I watched him bring a crowd to its feet after a passionate speech about the public interest obligations owed to all Americans, and how the FCC is their protector. In every speech he gives, to use a sports analogy, Michael Copps leaves it all on the field. He speaks from his heart, but more significantly, he speaks to the hearts and minds of the American consumer. He is uncompromising in that regard, as are all true champions. His dedication to this agency and its work is unquestionable. He arrives literally before the rooster crows. He has accomplished more each day before most of us finish our first cup of coffee. He also attends more meetings in one day than most people attend in 1 week. In fact, he even attends joint board meetings, not necessarily easy to do, and once was, did I say that out loud? And once was willing to travel to another city to provide over the joint boards when I wasn't available. I had Angie check our attendance records on the joint boards, and he shows up each and every time, no matter the agenda, and wows us with his intimate knowledge on telecom policy and his personal experience on adopting new technologies, such as moving from telegraph messages to party lines to cell phones. He's recently integrated into his comments his up-to-date Twitter account, which includes his personal encounters with airline attendants who insist that he turn off all of his electronic gadgets before takeoff. Oh, that wasn't you. That was an actor, not a rock star. Seriously, I would dearly miss that great smile, effortless charm, and gentlemanly demeanor that you consistently displayed during battles, victories, and even during disappointments. You have been a tremendous source of encouragement and comfort for me. And it is hard to imagine how it would be without you here, sitting next to me, lending quiet support and inspiration. But as I've heard you say more than once, you are leaving this post, but not this space. And for that and so much more, I am eternally grateful. We love you, Michael Copps. Well done, my friend, well done.
Tough acts to follow. Commissioner Copps.
I don't think I'm even going to try. You talk about eloquence and speaking from the heart, and I can't thank each of you enough. The reason I could do that seamlessness from the telegraph to the party line and all is because I saw them all come and go. I don't know where to begin. It's been an incredible day already, and it's only 11:40. Chairman mentioned the meeting we had with former commissioners this morning. I had an opportunity to thank them. So I will begin today and probably end today just by saying thank you. There's probably no one in this room who is not owed a big thank you from me. First of all, thank you to the chairman, not only for his lavish, generous, and excessively generous praise, but for so many kindnesses and courtesies that you have shown to me since you came here, and for the great leadership you are showing in your hard work in behalf of consumers, in behalf of the country. You've been instrumental in giving this country for the first time a broadband strategy, for making progress on opening up the internet, on coming with a consumer agenda, and really building an agency of excellence, which I know is near and dear to your heart. My friend Rob, what can I say? We've been through so much together. He talked about the collegiality, the cooperation. He is the personification of that. I will always remember the DTV transition and how you rolled up your sleeves and waded in and traveled the country and came to the meetings and made constructive suggestions, helped build that coalition. and it's just been a wonderful experience, always eloquent, always with that wonderful sense of humor, and in spite of being one of those Blue Devils, really a close and wonderful friend, and I look forward to the continuation of that friendship in the years ahead. To my friend Mignon, who brings such incredible background and commitment with her, a palpable commitment to public service and to bringing telecommunications to those who have had to wait too long for telecommunications and the tools of opportunity in the 21st century. We thank her for that, and also for her ability to keep us all pretty well grounded with her perspectives and her wonderful sense of humor, and really her refreshing and total sense of candor. And again, I look forward to our friendship going down the line. Thanks to all of my former colleagues. My staff is here. I think most of my present staff, some of my former staff. I wish you all would stand up so I can just say thank you. These folks are the best of the best, who live the public interest, who came in and worked together. I don't think in 10 years here I ever heard a harsh word exchanged among members of my staff, never any one-upsmanship. It's always been pulling for the common good, and it's been a wonderful experience for me. It's not always that way, but their sense of working together and pulling together, and their dedication to public interest, and also their great facility and keeping me out of trouble has been and is very much appreciated. So I thank you, and one among you, Carolyn, whereas Carolyn Conyers has been with me since the beginning. Probably has more experience on the 8th floor than all of us combined, and really, without Beth and without Carolyn, I would really be, as Senator Hollings would say, a lost ball in the high weeds. So she's kept it all going. To others, my family, thank you for mentioning them, because they're so important in anybody's success, their ability to work in the public sphere, and they have sacrificed a lot while I traveled and went off and talked telecommunications at the table and all the rest. Beth will be around later today, but she's the love of my life and has been just a wonderful partner and mother. I want to say thank you to someone who's not here today, but who I talked to yesterday, my former boss, Senator Fritz Hollings, who really taught me what public service is all about, what it should be. He never denigrated it. He always elevated it. He never went back home and ran against those idiots in Washington. He went home and tried to explain how government worked and what public service was, and he saw his role as trying to tell the people who had sent him to Washington what he saw, give him his best judgment, and saw politics as something of an education of the citizenry enterprise. And he also taught me, although I never mastered the art quite as much as he did, to tell it like he saw it, exactly like he saw it, and to go out and explain yourself in terms that people can understand. He was a master of that. To my mind, the ideal public servant, and I owe him a career here in Washington, but more than that, I owe him some of the best lessons you could ever learn in life. I think it was the great poet Alfred Lord Tennyson who said, "We are, each of us, part of all that we have met." And that's how I feel today, part of this place, part of each of you, part of friends from days on Capitol Hill and in the Commerce Department and around town, part of the folks who have helped us from the world of business and enterprise, and of course the great friends and the consumer and advocacy and public interest groups who do so much for so many for such little return for themselves. Part of our great friends in the disabilities communities, in the minorities communities, in the native populations across this country, again, all of whom are waiting for an opportunity to use the tools we have available to fulfill their lives. The world has changed at warp speed really over the past 10 years that I have been here. Broadband, wireless, the internet, satellite, global communications. It's really been a privilege to be part of all of that. This is a wonderful institution. It's a very unique place. Every country doesn't have something like this where you can find this level of expertise and come in with the hope of finding independent judgment rendered on the facts rather than ideology, where you take the real enabling tool of the 21st century and try to harness the vision of public policy with the experience and the know-how of the private sector. It's a wonderful, wonderful challenge, and it's that reputation we always have to fight for each day and every day, so that we are serving the common good and the public interest and avoiding any threat of being perceived as captive to anybody who we oversee. That's always a challenge to overcome, but this place thrives best when we do overcome that and when we do really tee up the issues on their merits and try to serve the public interest. Huge challenges remain. It's always that way. I will luckily spare you my media speech this morning, but I intend to keep talking about the level of threat that I think the state of our journalism and our media and our news holds for this country. I think we face no greater challenge with all of the great problems that the United States faces right now, going to its very economic and competitive viability and providing opportunity for everybody. Unless we have a civic dialogue that digs deep and affords opportunity for diversity of voices, there's not one of those problems that we will manage to overcome. But with a media like that, with our friends from the fourth estate enabled to do their job, so not only that they're there, but so that 5 years from now, twice as many of them are sitting over there to hold us accountable and to hold government accountable and to report to the people what's happening. We don't have that. We don't have much of a, we have no guaranteed outcome on that one. Let me just put it that way. So it's been a precious and a wonderful opportunity. I will probably have pangs of remorse when I go on the computer next month and I'm not sitting up here. It's just been incredible, more than ever I could have hoped for or asked for. You all made it possible. I do feel a part of all of you, and from the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you for your wisdom and your commitment to public service and your friendship, and God blesses everyone. Thank you. Thank you again.
Well, thank you again, Commissioner Copps, Mike, for topping us all. As always, we wouldn't expect anything less, and we're so pleased that to have this tribute for you today. Let us conclude. We have one final announcement. Actually, let me ask if any of my colleagues have any announcements. No. We say goodbye today to David Fisk. I don't know if David is here. Hi, David. David has been at the commission for more than 16 years, serving for 10 years as the director of the Office of Media Relations. When David became the head of OMR, the office had gone through 6 directors in 6 years. I was here for that, and I was here when David came, steadied the ship, righted the ship. It tells you not only that David was a little crazy to take the job, but also says something about how wonderful a job you've done in this role for a long time. David came to the commission from Com Daily, knew so much about the commission, about the agency's relationships with the media, and has worked very hard, tirelessly over the years to make sure that that relationship works in 2 ways. For those of you who don't know, David has a career that precedes the FCC. He worked at the Federal Elections Commission, at the U.S. Senate, and as a lieutenant in the Navy. We applaud that career of service. David plans to, perhaps consistent with the Navy background, move to Rehoboth. He will be able to see the ocean every day. He'll continue to work on a freelance basis, and we hope that we're able to continue to interact with you, David. We've valued your work. We've valued our relationship with you over the years. You've been a steady rock of the commission for such a long time, and we'll miss seeing you every day. So thank you, David Fisk. And with that, Madam Secretary, please announce the date of the next FCC agenda meeting.
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Tuesday, January 31st, 2012.
Golly, I can't make it.
Thank you very much. Hey, everyone. I'm going to do this very quietly today. Calm COMACT. It was a good day for humor at the FCC, I thought.
Let's start with Ted.
Chairman Jankowski, Ted Godfrey, Telecommunications Reports. My question was, obviously we're here at the end of the year and wondered a lot of things that most people would agree got accomplished here at the FCC, but what has been the biggest policy challenge, would you say, for you and I guess the Commission this year? And is there anything related to that sort of remains significantly to be done that you see as a significant challenge for you all that will continue into, the coming year?
Well, thank you for saying that. It has been a year of accomplishment. We've been focused on unleashing the opportunities of broadband to drive our economy, drive innovation and investment. And over the course of the year, we saw that, among other things, in USF reform, the creation of the Connect America Fund, a whole series of actions on spectrum. We continue to have a lot of work to do on all of these fronts, but our focus is going to remain the same. We have refocused the agency on broadband, wired and wireless, the opportunities of broadband to drive our economy and bring benefits to all Americans. We developed, as you know, right at the start, the National Broadband Plan, which continues to be a framework for our work, and we'll continue to focus on the issues we've laid out in 2012.
Hi, where is the FCC in its review of Light Squared, and what are your thoughts on the leak of some of its testing results?
Well, our work has been and will be focused on the engineering and the facts. As you know, Light Squared is not authorized to provide service and won't be until interference and safety issues are addressed. We await the report on the testing and the recommendations from NTIA, which is the next step.
Why was the spectrum screen changed in the AT&T deal?
Well, all of our work in reviewing that transaction was based on the facts, based on FCC procedures and precedent. I think that particular issue has been addressed by staff. In general, we did our work consistent with the statute to focus on facts, run a fair process, and run and do our job.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Todd Shields with Bloomberg News. Can you comment on the Commission's and perhaps your personal relationship with AT&T now, given the criticism they've unleashed after you designated their merger for a hearing?
You know, the Commission every day addresses issues on which parties disagree. The job of the agency is to focus on the facts and to make its best judgment about what meets our statutory objectives and meets our mission to promote competition, to drive innovation, investment in our economy in the United States.
So was AT&T wrong when they called the staff report an unsupported piece of advocacy work?
You know, I think we've talked about the strong, fact-based work that the staff has done. It was a record that consisted of thousands and thousands of pages of submissions from many, many parties, many meetings, and the staff did excellent work.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll now proceed to part two, the staff on the press conference on the agenda item. Do anybody have questions on the COMACT?
I do.
All right, Bill and team will come up. That's what we're here for.
I'm the last guy standing or sitting. I'm used to that. Everybody's abandoned me.
Let's see, who wants the first question?
I'll do it.
Brooks, how about you lead?
Ultimately, who is responsible for the loudness of a commercial?
The statute makes the TV stations and MVPDs responsible for the commercials that they provide to consumers. Many of those commercials are embedded by the program providers, and what we've tried to do is to establish a mechanism for the TV stations and MVPDs to be able to rely on certifications from the program providers, the program owners, so that the statute can work through the whole production chain where our direct regulatory authority is over the parties I've just described.
So how did you address like DirecTV's concerns? I mean, they have hundreds of channels nationally, and they were concerned that basically it seems like that all they would be doing would be testing for commercial loudness.
One of the things that we heard in working with the industry and the other parties was that we fully hope and expect that program providers will certify in many instances the compliance of their programming, and there is a one-year period before the effectiveness of the rules, which was provided in the statute. We very much hope and expect that program providers will certify their programming during that period, and for programming that is certified, the spot checking responsibility won't be there. So we hope that that will minimize any burden on the MVPDs or the stations to test programming that is certified.
And if the, I'm not sure, but if the standard, the F85, AA, well, whatever it is, I can't remember, if that changes, is there some mechanism that allows for you guys to let that change automatically?
Will that be automatic? Yeah, certainly we would accommodate changes in that standard. I believe that in the order, those changes would be incorporated into our rules automatically.
Or we might do a proceeding if necessary.
Or, yes, or
if it like radically changes somehow. Yeah. Okay.
We can go either way.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Bye, David.
And this concludes the press conference and the agenda meeting. This concludes my last press conference, and that's the way it is.